Thank you all for gathering with us again today. I'm sorry we're running just a few minutes late. We had a lot of information to deliver in our UCG meeting. I'm joined this afternoon by John Long from FEMA, Dr. Sean Wilson, who is the Secretary of the Department of Transportation and Development, Chip Klein from the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority, Secretary Marquita Walters from the Department of Children and Family Services, the Adjutant General, Major General Glenn Curtis of the Louisiana Army National Guard, and Colonel Jim Wascom, who is the director here at GOSAP, and we're also joined by Colonel Murphy from the Corps of Engineers. This system, as you all know, has been upgraded to Tropical Storm Barry. It continues to trend in a slightly more easterly track. It's important to note that this system is just starting to get organized and that the Gulf remains very warm and warmer than it needs to be to feed energy into the storm and allow for it to increase its intensity. We're anticipating a Category 1 hurricane at landfall, which at this time we believe will be Saturday morning and will be in the central coastal area in and around Morgan City. Obviously there will be updates between now and then, and everyone needs to pay attention to the track. But however, we shouldn't be focused primarily or exclusively, I should say, on that track. This is going to be a major weather event for a huge portion of the state of Louisiana. And the more information we get, the more concerned we are it's going to be an extreme rain event for a large portion of the state. Rainfall totals of 10 to 15 inches are possible, and with locally higher amounts expected in some areas on an isolated basis. The heaviest rainfall will likely occur Friday through Sunday morning. Due to the uncertainty in the track, there is a storm surge threat for all of South and Southeast Louisiana. I would remind everyone this is the 258th consecutive day of the flood fight on the Mississippi River. That is the longest in history. And if Tropical Storm Barry becomes a hurricane, as we fully expect it will, this will be the first time that we've had a hurricane make landfall in Louisiana while the Mississippi River was at flood stage. And it isn't just the Mississippi River. We have elevated river levels across Louisiana. We are looking at storm surge of 3 to 4 feet lasting 12 hours around the Mississippi River. That's actually good news relative to yesterday. Because as you will recall, the prediction was for a water level at the Carrollton Gate to reach 20 feet. That has been revised downward to 19 feet. And while that's a relatively slight difference, it has resulted in a new forecast that calls for no water overtopping any portion of the levee on the Mississippi River. That's obviously good news, and we're encouraged by that change. However, with more intensification and a change in the track, that certainly could go back the other way, but the forecast has certainly improved. We are still at risk of significant flooding in South and Southeast Louisiana. Whether it comes from rain or from the river, water is water. And we are encouraging everyone to take this very, very seriously. And search and rescue teams, boats, and high water vehicles have been pre-positioned across the state. We are leaning forward, and when I finish speaking in just a few minutes, you're going to hear from the Adjutant General about certain preparations that he and the National Guard are making. You're also going to hear from Secretary Sean Wilson about some actions being taken by DOTD. And then you will hear from the Department of Children and Family Services about sheltering. And then we will obviously take your questions as well. I want you to know that this morning I was able to speak with FEMA Acting Administrator Peter Gaynor. and I have signed off and requested a federal declaration of emergency pre-landfall. I also want to go over quickly those areas that have declared evacuations, including Calcasieu Parish, partial evacuation in lower lying areas south of Lincoln Road. East Louisiana Parish has a voluntary evacuation for residents residing along the Amite River. In Jefferson Parish, there was a mandatory evacuation for residents in lower lying Lafitte, Crown Point, and Barataria. The city of Grand Isle has a mandatory evacuation starting at 12 p.m. Today and a 10 o'clock curfew this evening. Lafourche Parish has a voluntary evacuation south of Leon Ontario floodgates. In Ouachita Parish, they're communicating with evacuating parishes in affected areas as to their evacuation status and the need to execute point-to-point agreements. And so what we're talking about there, for example, is Plaquemines Parish, that I'll get to shortly, has a point-to-point agreement with Ouachita Parish as it relates to sheltering when there are evacuations out of Plaquemines Parish. And speaking of Plaquemines Parish, they do continue to have their mandatory evacuations south of Carnarvon and Oakville. Plaquemines Parish has also already evacuated the jail on the east bank of the Mississippi River, and also the Riverbend Nursing Home evacuation is complete. In Tangipahoa Parish, there are voluntary evacuations possible below LA 22. And in Vermilion Parish, there's voluntary evacuations issued for the lower portion of that parish. We will be making an announcement later this afternoon about office closures, state office closures, that will occur tomorrow.